Hello and good afternoon. You're joining me as I'm making my journey home. I've been in Inverness, just making sure that one of our trucks got loaded with timber and away to England. This is me going home. Now, I'm going to tell you a story, and it's I think the title of this video is going to be Follow the Science, or Trust the Science, if you like. But before it becomes clear why I'm saying that, and why I'm going to call it that, why I'm mentioning Follow the Science, I have to tell you a bit about my education and when I was a child. So, because it leads up to it. Now, I didn't really show any great academic promise, so my parents decided that for my secondary or senior, if you like, secondary education, they were going to send me to a large city comprehensive school. Now, for anybody who may at some time in the future be listening to this who is not from the UK, and a comprehensive school was, shall we say, it was a state-run school. There were no fees to pay for it. Now, that was okay, but my parents, they were relatively comfortably off. Certainly, high-level professional people with some, I would say, social standing within the community. And so they didn't know how life was for those families whose kids went to the large comprehensive schools. I had an idea. I have no idea where the idea came from. I really don't. A lot of my ideas, I have no idea where they've come from. Anyway, in preparation for going for my first day to this new school, my parents decided that I needed a school uniform, and so off we went to get the school uniform. Now, there was an option of having short trousers or long trousers. Now, I was explaining to my mother that I needed to get long trousers. I think I was probably about, I don't know if I was 11 or 12 at this point. I really can't remember. And my mother said, no, you must have short trousers. That's what boys will wear, short trousers. And I was trying to explain that this is a large city comprehensive school and the boys wouldn't wear short trousers. And please, could I have long trousers? Otherwise, it might make trouble for me because I would look very odd. But no, she was insistent. Short trousers, that's what you should have. And so short trousers it was. Okay, so approaching the first day at school, I was apprehensive, not mainly because it was an inner city comprehensive school, but because I was going to be wearing short trousers, and I knew nobody else would be. I mean, the other boys wouldn't have been wearing them at all, goodness no. It was made worse, my apprehension was made worse by the fact that my father insisted that he was going to drive me to school. Now, I said I'd walk, because the other boys and girls would be walking to that school. Back then, which would have been, what would it have been, 59, 69, 70, 1970, 1971-ish area. In those days, apart from certain of the, what would have been called working class jobs, apart from certain ones, the money wasn't particularly good. These people didn't have a lot of money. There were very few cars amongst those people. Motorbikes maybe, and push bikes certainly, but not many cars. And I didn't think it was a good idea for me to be arriving at this school on the first day in a car. Anyway, off we went, short trousers and in a car. And worst of all, I had a briefcase. They insisted I had a briefcase because every boy going to school had to have a briefcase. And this was such a bad idea. not something that these boys would be doing. So we arrived at the school. Sure enough, we were in fact the only car, apart from the teachers, we were the only car. Everybody was arriving on foot or on bikes that had been made up from bits of bicycles off, I don't know, that had been thrown away. And these boys simply made bikes about them. It's what you did. It was fun, I'm sure. So there I was in a car, getting out of a car in my short trousers with a briefcase. It doesn't take a lot of imagination to see that I was going to be a target, and sure enough I was. And I had a pretty tough time at that school. Every single day was the same. Every single day I got beaten, and because of my upbringing, because of my I suppose, I don't know, my parents educating me, I even found myself in the situation of being attacked by the girls at this school, who I wouldn't fight back against, because of course they were girls, and of course boys did not hit girls. Girls, I can promise you, they were pretty vicious, pretty aggressive, surprising, but I would just curl myself up in a ball and let them kick me, because you could not hit a girl. Anyway, it culminated ultimately in, and this will all make sense, it isn't just one of my meanderings, but it will actually make sense. It culminated in one day being picked bodily up and thrown down 3 flights of stairs, which caused me some, I don't know, pretty reasonable physical damage. I got into the classroom, but not very easily. I hadn't damaged myself that much. I was bruised and such, a bit dazed. I'd actually only broken one ankle, so it wasn't too bad. I tried to get through the class, but the pain was getting a little bit too much for me. I was only young, really, and I asked the teacher if I could be excused from the class, explaining the situation and so forth. He didn't actually believe me. He thought I had something stuffed inside my sock. When he discovered by squeezing it that there was nothing there but a big yelp from me, I got taken in an ambulance to the hospital, and I never went back to that school because I have the dubious accolade of having been expelled from a large city comprehensive. That was pretty good going. That's kind of like a real feather in my cap. I got expelled. Now, this left my parents with a bit of a problem, because the only other schools in the area was a Catholic school. We were not Catholics, and I couldn't get in there. And however, how many strings my parents tried to pull, they could not get me into this Catholic school. That left one, and that was what's called a public school, or a private school, if you like, a fee-paying school. Now, they were reluctant to send me there because it wasn't cheap, and I didn't show any academic promise, as I said. And so to them, I suppose understandably, it struck them as being an absurd waste of money. But there was no option, because it wasn't a particularly brilliant school, although I did quite enjoy my time there, I suppose. It wasn't a particularly brilliant school. If you didn't strike them as being particularly academically capable, as long as the school fees were paid, that would suffice. So off I went to a private public school, and there were certainly bullies there. The older boys, in particular, from higher up the classes, they could be bullies. But having spent a year in a large city comprehensive school, where every day, without fail, at least once a day, I was quite severely beaten, this place was of no concern to me at all. It was laughable, and I didn't have any problem with bullying at all there. What I did have was a situation with the education itself. Now, I want to say just briefly, just backwards slightly here, the large city comprehensive school, the education there was excellent, and I want people to understand that. It was a comprehensive school, and they often got a bad rap, or get a bad rap, but the education there was fantastic. I really missed the teachers because I grasped science subjects and enjoyed them and understood them, and it was a revelation to me. I absolutely loved it. And when I went to this private school, this public school, it was different. Everything was different. The teaching methods were different, and what they taught was different. And I quite frankly, I struggled with it. Often got into a little bit of trouble. Nothing too much really, but a little bit of trouble. Anyway, this leads me to the story of trust the science, or follow the science. Now, I ended up only doing arts subjects at that school because I was told to go to the library and read books through physics, chemistry and mathematics, because I didn't seem to grasp the subjects and I was disruptive. I'll pick particularly on physics, mainly because I can't remember too many stories. It's a long time ago. But here's trust the science, follow the science. We were in a physics class and we were having gravity and such explained to us. And I remember the teacher, I can't remember his name now. I mean, he was a nice guy. I think it was Mr. Cameron. He was a nice guy. He had a tribe stag, which was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. Anyway, he was explaining he would dropped a blackboard rubber to the floor, and he said, "Right, boys, why did the rubber stop?" And all hands went up in the air, and I didn't put my hand up in the air because I'm still trying to work out what on earth that question meant. And he said, "Yes, you boy," to one of the class. And the boy said, "Because it met a force acting upwards equal to the force the rubber exerted downwards, sir." He said, "Yes, exactly, that is it. Equal and opposite force. And that's why the rubber stopped." Now, he noticed, I mean, I was renowned for this, but I didn't seem to be paying attention. This is because I was still struggling with the actual initial question about why did the rubber stop. So he said, oh, I shouldn't have said that really, should I? That's mentioning my name. But anyway, in any event, not to worry. He said, "Why did the rubber stop?" And I said, "Because it hit the floor, sir." Now he was a bit irritated by this, and he said, "No, it didn't, fella. Why did the rubber stop?" I said, "Because it hit the floor, sir." Well, we went no further with it because he thought I was being cheeky, but I wasn't. I was having trouble with the question because, as far as I was concerned, the rubber stopped moving because the floor was in the way. If you take the floor away, the rubber would have carried on moving. Now, I understand the finesse of the argument about equal and opposite forces, but let me continue in a moment to explain more of that. So I was sent to the headmaster. Headmaster said to me, "Why are you here?" I said, "I don't know." Well, that got him quite angry. I mean, I didn't know why I was there. I had no idea what I'd done wrong. I was answering the question, which I was still struggling with. Anyway, telling off, and off I went. Next week, in the physics class, he decides, Mr. Cameron, nice guy, he was a nice guy. I understand I must have driven him to distraction. Asked again, why does, it wasn't a rubber, it was something else at this point, he dropped it, "Why does it stop?" And I said, "Because it hit the floor, sir." And he said, "No, it didn't. It is because it met a force acting upwards equal to the force it was exerting downwards," or something like this. So forgive me, you physicists, scientists, if I'm slightly inaccurate, but you know what I'm trying to say here, what I'm trying to recollect from the past. Anyway, he said, "No, this is what it is. What have you got to say for yourself?" And I said, "Well, it's a very clever flaw, sir, because if I drop a feather, it stops at the floor. If I drop a brick, it stops at the floor. If I drop them both at the same time, they both stop at the floor. How does the floor know to exert one force upwards for the brick to stop it and one force upward for the feather to stop? This got me sent to the headmaster again. Well, okay, same thing again. Why are you here? I don't know, sir. I think I might have called him headmaster. Anyway, I don't know, headmaster. Which got him even more annoyed because I'd been there the week before for the same thing, it would seem. Although I was still struggling with what on earth am I getting wrong here? I didn't actually understand. Anyway, telling off comes and off we go. Well, we're in another class and we're talking about, or we're being talked to, about space, about planets, and about the Big Bang, how it all started, how it all happened. So, it was proposed that, of course, there was nothing. And then the Big Bang occurred, and this all came out of it all that we know and we see out there now. This all came from the Big Bang. And prior to that Big Bang, there was nothing at all. Nothing existed. That is where existence began. I put my hand up and said, but, sir, nothing can come of nothing. Now, he was just looking at me, so I carried on with this. I said, if there is nothing, there cannot be a Big Bang, because for there to be a bang, there has to be something to make the bang. But you said there's nothing there. So there can never have been nothing. There must have always been something to make a Big Bang. And there can never have been nothing, which means it was infinite. It was always there and always will be there. And that's why space is infinite, sir. This really didn't go down well, and I was back to headmaster again, and I was told I wouldn't attend physics or chemistry or mathematics. I did actually get allowed to continue with biology. No idea why. Anyway, I did continue. I think because the biology teacher, was quite understanding of me, and I think he found me amusing. Not in any bad way at all. I don't mean that in a negative way. He found me amusing. He understood I had issues, and such. So anyway, that was me out of physics, which is a shame. I really would have loved it. Now, why follow the science? Well, that's exactly really the question. Why follow the science? Because at that time, science said, and until relatively recently, science would have had us all believe that there was nothing. There was a period of time when there was nothing at all. And then it all appeared from a Big Bang, or as they then started calling it, a singularity. But if there's nothing, there can be no singularity. There can be nothing there to make a singularity. If the singularity is there, then there was nothing. So there always has been something. There can never be a point at which there was nothing, because nothing begets nothing. Nothing plus nothing is nothing. That's all there is to it. So there has always been. It always has been. We find it difficult to deal with the concept of infinity, because we, as we are currently, are not infinite. We are finite. Now, there's lots of arguments, or discussions I'd like to have about why that may not necessarily be so. And I'm not even speaking in religious terms here, but just on scientific terms, why this might not be so. The fact remains, however, that what exists out there has always been. There never, ever has been nothing. A difficult concept for us to grasp, but it's a fact, because it has to. Because we're here, and the planets are here, and the stars are here. Everything is here. Stuff must always have been in existence. There was never a time when it wasn't, which is difficult because it means infinity is real. Now, back to follow the science. This concept that there was nothing and then a singularity or a Big Bang was what we were told. This was the science. This was what we lived by. It was almost like religious education. This is how it was. Actually, there's a crossover really with religious education at this point, but I'm not going to go into that because at the moment it's going to distract me and slightly befuddle my brain. So we were told this: nothing then Big Bang. Later in life, nothing, then singularity. Brian Cox, I think, is the physicist. I think all the girls like him. He's very popular. I think girls like him. He said, I think it was maybe a week or two ago, or maybe more, I think I picked it up off the internet anyway, but he made an amazing statement, which was, of course, there never was nothing. There can never be nothing, because nothing can come of nothing. There has always been something. Nothing can come of nothing. There never was nothing. In 1970 or 71, I got thrown out of physics and maths and chemistry for saying that. I got told off by the headmaster for having said this, because that was not what science said. Science said something contrary. But to a child of my age, back in 1970 or 71, so I was 11, 12 years old, it was an impossibility. How could that possibly be right? But I wasn't a scientist, I wasn't a teacher, I wasn't a professor. I was an idiot, a stupid child who was being insolent and cheeky with the teachers. I was right. No, I never thought I wasn't right. I used to spend many conversations with people as I grew up from that age on into my 20s and my 30s and my 40s and my 50s, saying, but do you not see there can never have been nothing? It is infinite. It is infinite. Time is infinite. It always has been. There never was a beginning, and there never will be an end. It cannot be. There cannot be a beginning or an end to this. Nothing can come of nothing. So something has always existed. It has always existed. Get your head round it as best you can, and relate it to your life now as best you can. Well, to your life and in fact to your death as best you can. It has taken, if we take it from my birth, 64 years. If we take it from when I first said it, so let's say I was 12, so what was I then? So that's 42 years, 62, yeah, 42. It's taken 42 years for me to hear science say what I said then. 42 years I had to wait for science to catch up with a 12-year-old who wasn't allowed to continue with science subjects and consequently went to university eventually and had to do, if you like, a political science degree. I would have loved to have been a physicist. The subject fascinates me because I don't find it that difficult to deal with the concept of infinity. I don't know why, but I suppose because from a very young age I realised that there was no beginning and there was no end. There couldn't be. It always existed, and that in itself is a difficult concept. But I didn't have trouble because I was younger, so I've lived with that understanding, that belief for nearly all my life. So follow the science, they say. But science gets it wrong, horrendously wrong and terribly wrong. And it's okay that science says, no, of course that's nonsense. But they said it, in my case, 42 years later. And for all that time, I was saying to people, having to explain to people as a lorry driver, so with no credibility whatsoever, I was trying to explain to people, but don't you see that this whole construct has to be wrong? It's so obvious, and people would argue with me about it. And I don't know. I'm not a scientist, I'm a lorry driver. That's what I am, a lorry driver. Yeah, I have an education, but I'm a lorry driver. That's all I've ever done. And all the science is just what I feel. You know, sometimes it's a gut reaction. Sometimes it's just common sense. My point, anyway, is when they say follow the science, I don't think that's necessarily such a good idea. I think you should think for yourself and think, well, that sounds absolute arrant nonsense to me. I mean, sometimes science is right, of course it is. Science is a good thing. I have nothing against scientists. I think science is fascinating. And scientists are people, we need scientists. But don't follow the science. You don't know what agenda is behind that piece of science or that what agenda is behind the narrative of this construct of a scientific theory of creation, if you like, that in fact was absolute nonsense. So anyway, to Brian Cox, who's a young man, Brian Cox, thank you very much indeed. You gave me absolute joy when I find that only a matter of weeks ago you said there can never have been nothing. Nothing comes of nothing. Thank you, Brian Cox, for setting it straight. That is not meant sarcastically. I mean, he's a funny guy, Brian Cox, so I like Brian Cox. And he gives some good explanations about things, but I'm not necessarily sure I would agree with all of them. Prior to a few weeks ago, Brian Cox may have thought, or at some time in his career as a scientist, he may have thought a singularity. He may have thought a Big Bang. I don't know. I don't know Brian Cox. So there we go. That was it. So a little story about my childhood, science, and follow the science, except, well, don't just follow the science. Think for yourself. It's all very easy. If I can work it all out, you guys can work it all out too. If you want to hear any more of these kind of stories, then do tell me. If you want to hear anything else, I have lots of views. I'm a lorry driver. I had loads of times to think. So I have lots of views, political, social, and so forth. If there is anything you want to ask me about, to talk about, you can suggest a subject, and I'm quite happy to talk about them. So if you'd like to do that, leave a comment saying, Mike, would you talk about this, or what do you think about this? I'd be absolutely happy to talk about it. I may relate it back to stories of when I was young. Hope you don't mind, but it's quite funny. It brings memories back to me. So, rest of it, enjoy the drive. I'll leave it going for a short while, but not too much longer. I don't know about YouTube and length of videos. So, thank you very much for listening. As I say, please leave a subject or a question or a topic, and if you like it, press the little like button. And let's see if I can get one more subscriber. That would be really cool. I could get to 20, and then I know it's not all my family. Right, I hope it's not all my family anyway. Thank you very much, and bye-bye for now. And here's where I'm going to stop the video. So as I say, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you'll leave a like and leave a comment or a question. Thanks very much for listening. Bye bye.